Boots is overrated.
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
No, you don't want us to get carried away. You got to see something.
Boots is overrated. Get the hell
Sean?
out.
Okay, so Sean says that Boots is being overrated. There's two ways to look at this. Maybe more than two. I'll share another trinket at the end. Well, if the likes of Sean, you guess, or a Thurman, or a Spence, or a Crawford are not willing to share the ring with Boots yet, there has to be something behind it. Do they perceive him as a threat? Strictly based on the eye test. At the same time, people are saying he can beat all them guys when his best wins are against the likes of Lipinets and Thomas Delorme. And some people are overrating him, perhaps, but that's not a slight on Boots. It's not Boots hyping himself up like that. It's fans, it's certain sections of media. They are overrating him. That doesn't say that he's a bad fighter or he can't fight. He can fight. He can punch. He can box. But is he being overrated by some? Yes. Has he faced anyone who can punch and box like Terence Crawford, who's as physically strong as Errol Spence, a southpaw, a tough, rugged contender like Danny Garcia? And the answer is no. But if they won't step in the ring with him, how will he get to prove that he's not overrated? And as for the people who I'm saying are overrating him, I'm not saying they're just some mindless numbskulls, because I guess by that criteria, I overrate him a little. I think he's pretty good. I think he is pretty good. I think he's willing to challenge, but you never know until he steps up. Who's going to be that step-up fight? Will Sean come out of retirement and give Boots that defining fight? Whatever position you take, he is an exciting addition to the weight class, and we can't wait to see that defining fight. We can't wait to see it. If Sean didn't think Boots was somebody, he wouldn't take time out of his day, whether he's expressing overrated, underrated, or whatever. He obviously recognizes Boots as a talent. I don't think he'll deny that. Here's a list of names that can take him out of the under or the overrated bracket, in my opinion. The Virgil Ortiz fight, a Mikey Garcia, a David Avanesian, and a Keith Thurman, and a Danny Garcia. A Conor BENN fight. These are relatively high-profile names. Like, some of them wins will resonate maybe more in Europe, but it's always good to get new eyes looking at what you do. A new fan base, a new demographic from other continents, always good. Virgil Ortiz as Michael Mickinson. Next, that's not really going to do much for his profile in America. No one knows Michael Mickinson. He can't really hit that hard, but he is a tricky southpaw. I'd like to see the Ortiz Jaron Boots Ennis fight. I would like to see that, but today's boxing is so pussy. It'd probably take about 10 years to make that fight, even if they both became belt holders. Network politics and PBC versus Golden Boy. We'll see more of Oscar De La Hoya, Tim Brown, and Leonard Ellaby probably. Why the fight's not going to happen, then we'll see of Boots and Virgil. Boxing's just pussy fight these days, and the boxers just allow it to happen. When the Muhammad Ali Act in America should give them the freedom to explore all the options, the most lucrative and the most career beneficial options. But we're not really seeing that in action, unfortunately. Now, here's the third way of looking at what Sean had to say. He's trying to up the views, up the sub count on his podcasts. So you say something like that, grab some attention, and at least in the boxing sphere of the internet, that's going to trend for the day, isn't it? For the next day or so. Is it trolling, perhaps? One of the biggest issues boxing has is the fake, real boxing fans. They'll say shit like, I'm not a fan of boxers, I'm a fan of boxing. And then when we have an opportunity to have an undisputed fight at 135, they're making all types of arguments why they don't want to see Devin fight KAMBSOS. They go into Lomachenko fanboy mode. But they will swear blind that they're not fanboys of no fighter, including Lomachenko. These guys are real wanksters. Or wankers, as we call them in the UK. You bring up the fact that Lomachenko had the opportunity to clean up the belt situation with Devin, but he opted for the franchise option. You bring that up, and they're saying, oh, the the whole notion that you're saying Lomachenko is scared of Devin is ridiculous. When I don't care if he ducked him because he was scared or not. The facts are he had the opportunity to clean it up, and he didn't. And now you want to delay Undisputed even more. What harm would it do for Devin to take on KAMBSOS, and then Lomachenko can get the winner later on down the line this year? What's the issue? They're saying, Devin might move up to 140 and the belts might get fragmented. And Loma can't fight for Undisputed. Well, Loma weren't concerned about fighting for Undisputed when he had all the scraps. But he's concerned about it now. Now Devin's got his opportunity to go for it. And now they're trying to paint Bill and Devin out to be the unreasonable, irrational. We want 10 billion to fight him and we're not going to go to Australia. When none of that is true at all. None of it. Eddie Hearn, Devin's promoter, says they are having conversations with KAMBSOS' people. He hasn't mentioned anything that's a major roadblock in the fight potentially happening. He didn't mention that. If he thought Devin was going to outprice himself or Bill was going to outprice himself, he wouldn't be trying hard to make the fight. All of a sudden, these real boxing fans, they're not interested in Undisputed because Loma make me sick. Then they're going into this, well, why should Loma? Obviously, Loma wants a title shot. Hang on, I thought you was a fan of boxing and not boxers. Why the fuck do you give a fuck what Loma wants? Do you want Undisputed or do you want the fighter you're a fanboy of to get a title shot over Devin fighting for Undisputed? Stop all the fake shit. Al Bernstein, he tweeted, not convinced Ryan Garcia KAMBSOS is a significantly bigger fight than Haney KAMBSOS. Ryan has the slight edge in notoriety, but somebody show me the hard data. Social media following is not hard data. Show me ratings, subs increase, etc. He said he's open to being wrong. Now, in America, maybe Ryan is more popular. He's got Mexico as well. Maybe. But the hard facts are, Ryan is no superstar in Australia. The effect that he has on them girls who follow him around on Twitter is not the same in Australia, right? Devin's not a big star in Australia, but what Devin does have, he has the last piece of that jigsaw to Undisputed. I'll be honest, right? It doesn't matter if it's Lomachenko, Ryan, or Devin goes over to Australia. They're going to turn out and fill out a stadium to see their boy KAMBSOS because they support their own over there. They really do. But here's the bigger point. We've already dealt with Lomachenko, right? Well, I have. And him opting for franchise over Undisputed. We've already dealt with that. Now let's deal with Ryan Garcia, who suddenly is in the picture. He opted out of a potential fight with Linares, who Devin takes on and beats. He also had an opportunity to fight Devin for the belt as a mandatory, and he declined it. Then he and Jojo Diaz, both Golden Boy lightweights, were going to fight each other rather than fight Devin, because Jojo also was mandated to face Devin and declined the offer. Now, Ryan pussied out of the Diaz fight, leaving Jojo with no dance partner, and he had to take his shot against Devin. And Devin beat him as well. So Devin's cleaning up everything, right? Cleaning up everything that Ryan won't fight. Ryan's sitting on the sidelines with anxiety issues, Twitter fingers, and you guys are not showing any disgust or opposition to Ryan Garcia possibly getting a shot in Australia at becoming a unified champion over Devin going for Undisputed. I tell you what, I've noticed a lot of you are getting very comfortable in your agenda. Devin is not the greatest 135-pounder I've seen come out of America. It's not about that. But he's champion, and he's been defending his belt. He's not having anxiety issues, not fighting for how long? Turning down his mandatories. He didn't take the franchise belt, but yet you guys want to shit all over him. Robert Garcia, he soloed DIBELLA out. DIBELLA phoned up Robert Garcia thinking it was Robert Diaz from Golden Boy and was telling him about all the plans they have for KAMBSOS to face Ryan Garcia. And Robert Garcia didn't tell him that he wasn't Robert Diaz until Lou spilt the beans over a couple of conversations. So Devin just got to keep doing what he's doing, keep defending his belt, move up to 140. Somebody pointed out on Twitter that some fans that are saying Haney shouldn't get a KAMBSOS fight because he doesn't generate revenue are also upset with PBC execs for saying Crawford doesn't deserve the Spence fight because he's a flop on pay-per-view and isn't Errol's only viable option. The duality of boxing. I think that says it all.
I think trained and you know, promoted by Lou DiBella. So maybe they did work something out with Golden Boy, where you know, let's do this first and then work on a big fight. I'm pretty sure that's probably what the direction they're looking at. Because look, Lou DiBella is my friend, and I'm gonna put him on the spot. Lou DiBella is my friend, and I'm not gonna say what he told me, but he called me thinking I was Robert Diaz. And Robert, how you been? Oh, I've been good. Oh, so why don't we do this? We could do that. He gave me a lot of fucking story. He spilled the beans. You know, I'm not gonna say exactly what he told me, but yeah, he told me something like that. So they are doing something together.
Yeah, what point did you tell me?
I listened to everything, bro. Then a few days later, I didn't tell him I wasn't Robert Diaz.
You're like, all right,
No, I didn't tell him. Then a few days later, he called me with somebody else on the line. I know if I think about it, I remember it was somebody else, somebody big, and they're like, "Hey, Robert, this and that." I'm like, this is happening again. Lou, why are you trying to? You're not Robert Diaz? No, I'm Robert Garcia. Oh shit, we're trying to call Robert Diaz. Well, you already called me a week ago, and you told me the whole. You told me everything. You told me everything.
So Conor Benn fancies his chances against Chris EUBANK at catchweight. Well, let's consider that EUBANK fought at 168 not too long ago. How does Ben believe that he could fight effectively under 160? If you're going to do the call out, surely you go into the Lions territory and you challenge at 160. You're making the challenge. You go to 160, no catchweight. How can you make catchweight? This guy hasn't even won a British title. Now, I think Ben has potential, but talking in boxing sets another threshold for you, as far as I'm concerned. If you can fight Chris EUBANK, and I've been calling for the David Avanesian fight anyway. He should fight David Avanesian. Not Echo Esserman, the British champion. Fight David Avanesian for the European, if you're really serious. Or how can we really take him serious? You're going to make call-outs against a middleweight who's on the cusp of getting a world title fight, but you can't fight David Avanesian for the European? Come on now. Some people are intrigued by the fact that it's going to be the sons of two UK legends in the ring. Nah, I'm not interested. I'm not interested in that fight. You know, unless Conor wants to jump up to 160, not a catchweight. It's got to be at 160. He doesn't have to come in at 160. He can come in at 152 if he wants, but EUBANK has to come in at 160. And let's see how well you do. EUBANK, however, played down the prospect of fighting Conor Benn and Billy Joe Saunders. He's targeting IBF champion Gennady Golovkin. Like, people keep talking about the IBF, how they very strict on their mandatories. Really? They're really strict on letting Golovkin be inactive for so long. But EUBANK said it's about chasing those championship fights, or chasing a big name that the fans can really get behind. EUBANK also said he wants to fight at least 3 times this year. That's not going to happen though, is it? Could do, but I'm doubting it. I'm doubting it very much. What did the victory over Liam Williams tell us about EUBANK? Well, you know, he's learned that good footwork and a good jab are 2 tools that can win you a fight against even good opposition. Just them 2 tools alone. He can hide his punches pretty well. Was there an injury to the left hand? Why he didn't continue to use it as effectively as he did in the first half of the fight? 160 doesn't have the best champions with the likes of Golovkin, Andrade, Murata and Charlo. He doesn't have the best champions, it has to be said. So EUBANK has got to get a move on. He's got to get a move on. He's in his early 30s now. He has a shot at beating some of the top guys because he's preserved himself pretty well and keeps himself in good condition. I think he'd beat Charlo. I really believe he'd beat Charlo. If he's able to ride punches like how he was riding them on Saturday, I think he can beat Charlo. Murata, I'd only give Murata a puncher's chance against EUBANK. I'd expect EUBANK to deconstruct him. Golovkin, I'm not a big fan of Golovkin. I think he's overrated. I think he's talented. It's kind of like what I was talking about with Boots. to a degree, it's not Golovkin's fault that he has these fanboys, you know, in the media and just these fans who just overinflate his resume, his punching power, his skill set and everything. And it kind of, if you don't check yourself, it kind of makes you like, I don't want to support this bullshit. But he is a good fighter. I'm not sure if EUBANK, even at this advanced stage and Golovkin looking like he's deteriorating a little, I'm not sure. I think that's a 50-50 right now. I think the more inactive Golovkin is, it swings in EUBANK's favour. If EUBANK can't beat this version of Golovkin, he could possibly win a version of a belt at 160, but what confidence could you have really to say that he can win a belt at 160 if he can't beat an aging Golovkin? I said Liam Williams was taking his fight too early. As soon as it was announced, coming off a loss, I thought EUBANK would be the wrong opponent for anyone coming off a loss, and that proved to be true. EUBANK said that stopping Williams would have gave him an easy way out, that he wanted to punish him. And I believe EUBANK believes that's true, but that's the delusional side of a boxer coming out. He wanted to stop Williams. He didn't either want to risk getting tagged by a silly shot or his left hand was hurting. But he definitely wanted to get him out of there. I don't think Liam Williams has spoke too much post-fight. And he didn't show up, did he? You know, he was brave. But as for him winning rounds and stuff, he may have won a couple here, but there was no Liam Williams mounting a comeback from what I saw. He was thoroughly outclassed in there. And he showed off the eye injury on Twitter. And his left eye is nearly closed shut there. He was brave, but when he realized that he couldn't compete with EUBANK's hands, he was just rushing in basically and trying to maul and not getting no real punching exchanges. A lot of headlocks, a lot of fouls, went in with his head. And he moved excessively, and it was him who needed to be coming forward and land the telling blows, because how many times was he knocked down in the first half of the fight? Like, I think his ego, because he worked himself up into a fit of hate for EUBANK, and I think his ego got the better of him, and a few opponents have done that with EUBANK. They've got so mad, I'm just going to walk through him, and tactically they've left themselves wide open. Like Nick Blackwell, he popped up, and he really wanted Liam Williams to win. And EUBANK obviously beat him and ended his career. And he got very worked up as well. And that wasn't helped by Billy Joe Saunders and Tyson Fury. They were really pumping him up. Like, Billy was just, yo, go in there and batter him and batter him and batter him. No, look, boxing's brutal, but it's a sport. You got to fight to a game plan constructed by Gary Lockett, his trainer. You know, like, what's all this, you know, like, football terrorist mentality? It might work against lesser opposition, but against a higher level of opposition, you need to strategize better. You're going to get your head kicked in. It reminds me of Chris's dad. There's a very similar pattern to their careers. Like, Michael Watson, the first fight he had with EUBANK, that was for, I think, the WBO middleweight title, 160. And he boxed well, but he didn't get the decision. Then the rematch, the whole country was pumping him up like they hated EUBANK, you know. And there's documentaries on it as well. The vitriol for EUBANK. And like, Watson came out in the second fight and fought a good fight, but it was very aggressive. You could say out of character, Watson was a counterpuncher, but now he's turning into the predator. And we know how that ended. Like Nigel Benn, the first fight he had with EUBANK. Once again, he was just enraged and infuriated by EUBANK and the pompous persona. And he took a beating. And if you notice in the rematch, he's way more strategic. He boxed a lot more. He didn't take the risks that he took in the first fight or what he was taking early in his career. And that was a draw. So let's just conclude with Liam Williams. Coming off a loss, a conclusive loss to Andrade, yeah? Then switching trainer, what was it? A couple of months before the EUBANK fight. And then you've got EUBANK, who's had, what was it, maybe 2 years with Roy Jones now. When you add it all up, it wasn't the best decision for Liam Williams, who apparently is signed to Pro Bellum now. He's not with Frank Warren. I think he's still with MTK as well. I want to see EUBANK win a world title. I don't know if he can. I think he's possibly in the right direction. You could never tell. Are there any flaws in Roy's coaching methods that might be exposed by a better opponent than Liam Williams? Time will tell. Now here's a real messed up story. Please don't hesitate to tell your people you love them no matter the circumstances. Let go of the grudge or problem you have with someone. Fix it, talk it out, and show them love. 2 days ago, I'm in so much pain. This is Robert Easter, who was shot and robbed for jewelry and a phone. I don't even know if the shooters were black, but I believe they were. Targeted him because he had some jewelry on. And it's just like, you're going to take the man's life for jewelry. Shot in Cincinnati. He's expected to make a recovery. I don't know if he's still in a bad neighborhood, but this man's been world champion. Like, all that jewelry, I don't know how much the jewelry was worth. I know he was in altercation in strip clubs before. All that money you're investing in strip clubs, jewelry and stuff, you need to get out of them neighborhoods, man. You're a target. You can't live there no more. You've became something. Can't live there. Just can't live there no more. Or just casually be walking around there. Can't do it. You learn to become a little streetwise when you grow up in certain areas. And more than likely, this wasn't just a random opportunity. They've probably been targeting him, maybe seeing the jewelry, or maybe it's a revenge attack for something that happened a little while back, and they did this to get back at him. Some may say Easter didn't fulfill his potential, but he was IBF lightweight champion. You know, how many people get to achieve that, to become a belt holder? He beat Ryan Martin last time out, and he was looking towards getting on with his career. But what damage has this done to his prospects of how far he can go? Does he recover from it? Perhaps he recovers sufficiently enough to get back in the ring, but he's never the same again, like Cleveland Williams. He was shot by a policeman and he had a bullet lodged deep in his body, and they say he was never the same again. We're talking the 60s here. YOKA versus BAKOLE is back in play for May the 14th. It was previously scheduled for January the 15th. BAKOLE, he pulled out of the Eliminator with HRGOVIC, and it looks like YOKA did the same thing. He said he was going to take the fight, but BAKOLE found a loophole that he was contractually entitled to the fight with YOKA, and YOKA is having to go through with the BAKOLE fight. That's the state of play. Was this deliberate on YOKA's behalf, knowing he couldn't get out of the BAKOLE fight, but he pretended like he wanted the YOKA fight? I don't know. It's a feasible theory, isn't it? One person who didn't duck the HRGOVIC smoke is Zhilei Zhang, and he is set to face HRGOVIC in the IBF final eliminator to face Alexander Usyk. Recently we've seen Luis Ortiz and Joseph Parker join the queue of heavyweights from Michael, Hunter, BAKOLE, Andy Ruiz, Charles Martin, and I probably missed more, who haven't wanted this fight. But Zhang has agreed to step up. Negotiations are underway. Zhang is 23-0 with 1 draw, 18 stoppages. HRGOVIC is 14-0 with 12 knockouts. So it looks like a big punching eliminator. There's no date or venue scheduled yet. Zhang's promoter is saying he could sell a lot of tickets in New York. Apparently in the last fight against Jerry Forrest, he sold a lot of tickets in New York. So both men are co-promoted by Eddie Hearn, so it should be a DAZN affair. Finally, we can get this eliminator on the road. Wow. Peace.